Welcome back to the Wizard Shop, and it's time for more 308 updates. We have a few more things we've installed on the vehicle. We're getting closer and closer every time. Let's get started. So we're making progress on my 308.
No, you were right the first time.
No. So you even got me slipping up now. The fuel injection conversion is coming along nicely. We keep finding things we need to change or upgrade, and we just don't want to do it kind of a halfway job. We want to do it right. And DanielSon's been kind of guiding some ideas and things and some people to contact, and it's been coming along really nicely. We got some upgrades in the engine bay, and today we're going to take the rear wheels off and show you some things we got going on inside of there, and also some CV shaft service. So without further ado, me and DanielSon will get this thing on the lift for you guys. So since the last video you guys saw, there's been some upgrades in the engine bay. A lot of small things, but very important things. One of them being this pipe right here. This is a crankcase vent pipe. If you remember on the previous videos, it was just a conglomeration of hoses and hose clamps and plastic Y pipes. It was very ugly. And actually DanielSon told me, he says, you know, Wizard, they have a pipe, the correct pipe that's supposed to go there. So I contacted Glenn at AMH Exotics. That's who I use for all my exotic parts. And he said, yes, we can get that. I think it was like $100 or something. It wasn't too bad, but it's worth it to me because it looks clean. When this goes back together, it'll look nice and proper. The next thing we have, you can see the little fuel rails are missing, and there's some changes we're doing to those, Daniel?
Yes, we sent them back to Top End Performance to get them basically connected, this one with that one with that one, with a small pipe in the middle so it clears the throttle right here.
Right, and that's, like you said, is to clear these throttle arms, and that's also an upgrade that we did here. There used to be this little kind of a thermostat that would bump the throttle up when the engine's cold. It had kind of an internal thermostat spring inside of it, and it would hold the throttle up. And once it warmed up, it would go back down to standard throttle, or standard idle, I should say. And you can see these two bolts here is where it used to bolt. Being that we don't have carburetors anymore, we don't need this anymore. So we took that off, and we really started thinking, me and DanielSon was like, how are we going to hook the throttle up to and synchronize all four of these? And you looked at what, Top End Performance, they had this little wheel here?
Yes. They were the ones that gave me the information I needed, and they sent me the part. And it was just pretty much bolt on, no modifications after that.
Yeah, I think it was a few $100, but it's definitely worth it. The time it would take to hand make this, it's totally worth just buying it, bolted on, and we're done. But you can see the throttle cable hooks to it, and when you hit the throttle, it moves all four in perfect unison. It's nice and smooth. It looks really nice too. But once we get these fuel rails back, you also have some fittings that connect to them all.
Yes, those are dash 6. We're not going AN fittings. We're just using these bar fittings with standard fuel hose, and that'll be enough.
Okay. And those came from what, anfittings.com or something?
Those came from anfittings.com, yes.
Yep. So that'll hook all of our fuel lines, our fuel rails, everything together. Now we have the throttle figured out, and we have this nice crankcase vent pipe that makes it look a lot cleaner. One of the things that the ECM calls for is a knock sensor, which is what these are. And we both looked around all over in the valley of the engine, different places we could mount them, and we really came up short. We really didn't know where in the world can they fit. But DanielSon actually found a place, I'll show you here in a minute, on the side of the engine, which is kind of where the motor mounts would go. And I thought about it, that would work perfectly, because I know a lot of the 80s and early 90s Chevy trucks had their knock sensors not in the middle in the valley in the engine, but underneath by the motor mounts. From the factory they came that way, so I know that idea will also work on this Ferrari. Let's get this thing up in the air and show you where we're going to put these. So we just lifted up the car with my bin pack portable lift. It is very handy because I can put a long-term project like this 308 on a lift, and we can have the lift capabilities without tying up my major, larger lifts that we use every day. It's small enough that if we're not using it, it folds up and kind of goes out of the way, but in this situation it works very, very nice. We also have 2 new evaporative cooling fans that just showed up from BinPack, and I'll show you guys as soon as we get those assembled. We already have 1 that we use, but we'll have 2 more on top of that this summer to keep us cool. I'm really thankful to BinPack for that. Now, I was getting ready to show you guys where we're going to put the NOx sensors, and these are the NOx sensors I'm talking about. These are standard General Motors Chevrolet 1990s NOx sensors. They have threaded portions on the end. If you guys can see, there's a little triangle of bolt holes right there on the side of the block, and that is a provision for a motor mount if they were to use this engine in a different chassis. But being that this is mounted the way it is in this 308, that motor mount location is not needed. But it'll be a perfect spot to thread in a NOx sensor. Now we'll only be using 1 of these sensors. We have 2 or 3 with different threaded sizes so that we could get the correct size to thread into the stock bolt hole there on the side of the engine. That will take care of our NOx sensor. Here is the AC compressor that StanceWorks gave me. They're doing a Honda engine swap in their 308. They no longer needed this, and he just kind of gave it to me. But this doesn't just mount to the engine. It requires a bracket, which they also supplied. This goes on the side here. And bolts up just like so. There's 2 bolt holes in the back. And right where I'm wiggling my fingers is where the actual AC compressor will go. There's this tiny little belt that runs the water pump and alternator, but behind there is a V-groove for a larger belt, and that would actually run the AC compressor. So thanks StanceWorks again for supplying that to me. Here is the hoses that go to them. Luckily they have not been cut. They just need to be cleaned up and flushed out. One thing you can see also with the wheel well out is there's the old idea that the old Ferraris require engine out to do timing belt service, but on these 308s, the way the engine layout is, it's very easy. You take the wheel liner out, everything is right there. No engine out for timing belt service on this car. This is also one of the reasons why Mrs. Wizard and I decided to go ahead and buy this car, because we would not have to pull the engine out every time we need to do something to it. It's right here through the wheel liner. Let's head on over to the other side. Another great thing, as you can see with the wheel liner removed here, is that we would not need to drop the engine to do the clutch. And DanielSon, you're saying these, what is these, gears here?
Yes, there's 3 gears.
There's one here coming out of the engine.
Yeah, that's going to be the engine output shaft.
Yep, then there's an intermediate gear.
Yep.
And this one goes into the input shaft of the transmission.
Yes.
So you take that cap off, take the gears off, everything. Then you can take this bell off and get right to the clutch.
Yes. That's where, if you were going to do a clutch job on this car, that's what you would remove to get to. And again, you can still do that in the car, even though it looks a little bit hard to get out. You
can see here that he has the high pressure fuel pump located in the same place that the old carburetor low pressure fuel pump was. It will use a lot of the same ideas of drawing fuel from the fuel tank here and provide pressure to our fuel injection system. So the idea of these cars are really hard to work on. They're actually not. There is a switch on the radio that looks just like this one. This is a new one that controls the fans. I had actually purchased one a while back, but then we decided to do fuel injection, and you informed me that, what?
That you're not going to need that switch anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because why?
So now we're going to be controlling everything from the computer. So I upgraded the temperature sensor at the engine. Something a little bit more modern. Then now the ECU can read, and then just one wire to turn on the new fans that are going to be going on the front here.
So no longer is a mechanical switch going to turn on and off our fans. The ECM will read the temperature sensor, and it will decide to turn the fans on and off with a relay or something?
Yes. 2 relays for each fan. One for each.
And that's kind of an interesting thing. The ECM on this has a few slots open. You can do your own options.
Yes, you can add options for the AC compressor. If you want it to turn off when you accelerate, or when it turns on, you can increase your RPM so it doesn't die off on idle.
That's pretty cool. Another thing we're going to upgrade as well is we're going to get rid of these flimsy little fans. These are the original fans that came on it. They look barely adequate, and the way I understand is on a really hot day, they really are barely adequate, especially with air conditioning running. You can see there's not even a shroud. There's nothing to direct airflow. It's just flimsy little fans out in the open. I'm going to be taking those off and buy those S-shaped upgraded fans. It has its own shroud and everything, and put right in place of these to increase the cooling and make it a lot better. So we won't be needing this switch after all. Maybe I'll send it back and get my money back if I can. So that'll be some upgrades we're doing here. We're doing a lot of upgrades in the back. It's kind of bringing this car to like the late 90s, huh?
Yes. Yes, definitely with the fuel injection, you know, there were models like the GTSI that came after the carbureted stuff. They're okay. The problem is with the fuel today, they don't really stand the test of time anymore. So, you know, we're going past that, going with something a little bit better.
Yeah, no Bosch Jetronic on here. We're not going to be using that. This is an upgraded fuel injection system that has modern unit injectors, which will be a lot better. So you remember when we were looking in the wheel wells in the back, we saw the CV shafts are missing out of it. And that's because they're here on this table. When I got the car from Freddie, the boots were badly torn. Let's take a look at these boots here. In a lot of modern cars today, when a CV boot is bad, it's almost as cost effective, and usually more cost effective, just to throw the entire axle out, the whole axle assembly, which is what this is, and put in a rebuilt one, because there is labor involved to take it apart and replace the boots. It's a common misconception that you just pull the boots off and put them on, but it's not. You have to pull a lot apart. You have to pull the steering knuckle loose, get it out of the way, get the CV shaft out of the way on a front-wheel drive vehicle. And in this situation, the CV shafts on these are not 60 or 70 bucks. They can be hundreds of dollars for a 308 Ferrari. Now it makes sense to pull them apart and just do the boots, not replace the whole CV shaft. If you want to take the piece off there, there's a circlip that holds these on a spline shaft, and these just come off. This is the old boot. We have new ones on order. But once this joint is out of the way, then you can remove your boots, put a new one on, put your actual CV joint back on the splines, and push it onto this right here, and replace the boot. These ones have been replaced. We did have those in stock here in the shop, but we're still waiting for two more to finish out the inboard joints for this car. One thing that was interesting on this is I didn't even know. On this one you can see a bunch of little, looks like little weights on the joint there. And I asked DanielSon, I said, what is that, for balance or something? And you said it was for
your wheel speed sensor.
Wheel speed sensor. That looks like something you would put on an old 60s or a 50s car, and you want to add cruise control, and you put weights or little magnets on your drive shaft. So now you can have cruise control, and it's the same idea. It's got little magnets on the outside of this so it can read speed. That's kind of interesting. You definitely don't want to damage those when you pull these out. So that's where we're at with the 308, and thanks to DanielSon, we have a lot of upgrades that I wouldn't have even thought of or even had time to mess with. So it's going to bring it even higher to that next level. I can't wait to get... Wait a minute, is it your car?
My car.
No, it's my car.
No, remember, you don't like stick shifts.
Well, we'll see about that when it's running. Maybe DanielSon might steal it from us.
No, I've been waiting.
We're getting really close to actually getting the engine running. We'll get the CV shafts replaced, get the cooling system upgraded, and I'm hoping we'll be on the road this summer. So if you're curious what kind of tools that either of us use to work on this car or any of the cars in the shop, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button, because there's more yachting videos to come, more 308 videos, and more all kinds of different cars in the shop right now. Thanks for watching.